hiker is sharing his story.
The sand had surrounded the whole leg, and it was probably one of the worst pains I've ever felt.
I'm about to tell you the greatest hiking story that took a sudden turn of events. This story is disastrous, and no one would have thought that it would end in this manner. Hiking is a fun activity that sometimes requires a certain level of expertise to be able to navigate through the murkiest waters and hills. A rule of thumb for hiking is to know how to navigate the area either with the help of a ranger or a map of the area, but even with the best safety gears, things are still bound to go wrong. And this was the case in the story of Ryan Osman, a 34-year-old man from Mason, Arizona. Ryan is a photographer that enjoys taking beautiful images of the outdoor lifestyle, but also loves hiking. In fact, his love for lifestyle photography was born out of hiking. He was an avid hiker who has had years of experiences navigating through different hiking grounds. Oftentimes, Ryan would bring his girlfriend Jessica along on his hiking adventures. They both enjoyed hiking all over Arizona. The couple wanted to go on a memorable hiking trip together, and they chose Zion National Park, Utah, as the perfect place to make beautiful memories. Unfortunately, this would soon turn out to be their most dreaded experience. Zion National Park is a southwest Utah narrow reserve, which is distinguished by canyon's steep red cliffs. On the 16th of February 2019, Ryan and Jessica made their way to the subway trailhead. The couple decided to hike on the left fork from the bottom subway route in Zion National Park. The hike would include descending a loose and steep slope, hiking through a river filled with various obstacles, and navigating different sections of wet and slippery rock formations. Their hike began on a beautiful morning, and at about 8 a.m., they got to the trailhead. Surprisingly, no one else was on the trail when they got there. Ryan and Jessica worked their way down the trail, and like a dream come true, it was everything they had expected. The duo got to the halfway point and it began to snow. That didn't stop them as they continued to walk down the trailhead, and soon they entered the subway and its steep slot canyon walls. They reached a pond where they had to cross, but Ryan had a strange feeling that things were about to turn sour. For one, Ryan could not see through the pond, and so he did not know whether it was deep or not, or what was lying beneath it. Since they had no choice but to cross the pond, which was already ice cold, they cautiously stepped into it. The pond seemed shallow, and the duo began to walk their way across with Jessica leading while Ryan followed behind. After what seemed like a moment, Jessica stopped and looked back, and Ryan knew that there was a problem. He asked Jessica if she was okay, and Jessica realized that she couldn't take another step. Her foot was stuck in the ground beneath the flowing water. It was quicksand, and she was slowly sinking. Ryan swung into action and went to grab her. Unfortunately, Jessica fell forward and into the water since she had no balance. But now both of her feet were stuck and she could not pull them out. Seeing that she was sinking deeper and deeper into the water, Ryan told Jessica not to panic and stop moving. He had no idea he was going to grab her and pull her out. Ryan grabbed her by the shoulders and pulled her as hard as he could without hesitating. Luckily, it worked, and Jessica was drawn out enough to a point where she could use her own strength to get herself out. The couple thought they overcame the biggest part of their obstacle, but they were just getting started. Ryan quickly realized that while trying to pull out Jessica, he had in fact gotten himself into the same quicksand that had kept Jessica stuck. He tried not to panic, but with every passing second, it became more difficult to keep his cool. This was one of Ryan's worst fears, to be stuck in quicksand. Realizing the severity of the situation, he yelled at Jessica to get away from him as far as she could and told her to get to the more stable part of the shore. All kinds of thoughts ran through Ryan's mind, but the prominent one was he realized that the water was already cooling his body temperature down. He knew that if he didn't get out of the pond quickly, he would most likely die of hypothermia. After a couple of moments, Ryan's right leg began to sink to his thigh and his left calf. He tried to yank himself out, but with every try, he became more tired and exhausted. He just kept sinking deeper and deeper into the sand, and soon he couldn't stand to get leverage to pull himself out. Jessica found the walking stick that Ryan had been using earlier, which he dropped when trying to save her. She passed the walking stick to him while holding on to the other end of the stick and tried to pull him out, but all to no avail. His weight was more than she could bear, and if Ryan was going to ever come out of the quicksand, he would have to be pulled out by someone much stronger. Jessica also tried to scoop the quicksand around Ryan in order to give him more room to wiggle out, but it was ineffective. Every time she scooped some sand out, it was instantly refilled with even more sand. The water was unfavorable. It was snowing and they were in a pond. Jessica was wet and soon began to shiver uncontrollably. It was obvious that if she didn't get herself dried soon, she would become hypothermic. They had to make a decision on the next line of action. Ryan suggested that she run out to find someone to help them since they had no cell phone reception and no one was in sight. Although Jessica was visibly weak and tired, she went ahead to look for help while Ryan waited, hoping that the worst didn't come to be. Unless there was a dramatic shift in events, this was a life and death situation. Although Jessica was still panicking and thought that Ryan would undoubtedly not make it if she left him, she still had decided to get off the trail and seek help. That was the better option. She could only hope that nothing bad befell him. As soon as she left, things took a dramatic turn. Hard snow began to fall. Ryan was shivering and was in pain, which was a result of trying to yank himself from the quicksand earlier. Dark and dreadful thoughts soon filled his mind. Although he was wearing essential clothing to keep himself warm when they started the journey, it was pretty much useless since he had gotten wet in the pond. In fact, his body temperature was dropping really fast. The water cools your body down faster than cold air. At this point, Ryan was propped up on a stick, but he was feeling tired and sleepy. He knew that if he fell asleep, there would be a high chance of never waking up again. He tried as hard as possible to stay awake, but he was overcome and soon fell asleep with his body propped up on the stick. Suddenly, he woke up and the stick he was propped on fell, causing the upper part of his body to fall into the water. The cold was already affecting his joints and muscles. He tried to pull himself out of the water, but he didn't have much hope. Maybe Jessica didn't make it to where they parked their car, or maybe she couldn't navigate the trail, since he was better at it than she was. Ryan had been stuck for 5 hours now, and all hope seemed to have been lost. The sun was setting, and it took with it the only source of heat that was keeping himself warm. It was only a matter of time before he would pass out from the cold, and probably fall back into the water and drown. Indeed, all hope was lost. Ryan was delirious at this point, but like a miracle, he saw a flash of light was hitting him in the face. Help was here. Ryan started yelling, and the rescuer called back. He ran up to Ryan and strapped himself onto a rock to ensure that he didn't sink as well while trying to save Ryan. The rescuer attached the pulley system around Ryan's waist with the other end of the pulley attached to a gigantic rock. He started ratcheting Ryan out of the quicksand. It was so painful that Ryan started screaming. The rescuer tried to dig the quicksand around Ryan's body but soon realized that he was going nowhere. He secured the rest of the area and waited for his crew. 2 more rescuers showed up. They held Ryan under each of their shoulders, attached the strap to his kneecap to try to pull him out. The tired rescuer began to dig as fast as he could while another person ratcheted the rope attached to the rock. They pulled as hard as they could, and after what seemed to be an eternity, Ryan got out of the quicksand. But this time, Ryan could not feel his legs. He was moved to a tent which they had set up since it was snowing and they were not in a good state to hike back to base. Jessica had been able to make it to the rescuers and was also resting in the tent. Ryan was put in a body bag to keep his body warm. They waited the night and in the morning, a helicopter came to get them. They were taken to the hospital for proper treatment and now they're doing fine. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button and subscribe to my channel to get premium content like this. Bye guys.